Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Jamel from Fantasy Life, and today I bring you my favorite character in the Naruto ninja world, Itachi Uchiha. Now before I get into this breakdown, I just want to give everybody the heads up that the regular Itachi as well as the reanimated Itachi are the same exact Itachi, even though they are taking up 2 slots. Now, I do want to point this out that this kind of pisses me off because I feel they could have saved this other slot for another character, but instead what they did was they just literally gave Itachi a new look and put him in a completely different slot and gave him all his same exact movesets. When you think about it, if you go to Kankuzu has his regular form as well as his reanimated form all in the same slot. Same thing with Dodora as well as with Sasori. So it was well within CyberConnect's ability to put both reanimated and regular Itachi's visual aesthetics in the same slot, but they chose not to. To even take it a step further, CyberConnect has also gone as far as to put 2 completely different characters in the same slot. For example, Kakashi Double Sharingan as well as Great Ninja War Kakashi are 2 different Kakashis. They fight completely different, from their jutsus to their combos to their even awakenings are actually even different. Same thing with Might Guy. Might Guy's awakening, his jutsus as well as his attacks are completely different when you consider Great Ninja War Guy and Might Guy. This leads me to believe that CyberConnect only did what they did with Itachi to basically patent their roster. Enough of that rant. Let's get into this breakdown. So first we're going to start off with his combos. We're going to start with his regular combo. The regular combo does about 15% damage. Unfortunately, even though it ends in a fire blast, it does not have status effect. It does not have chip damage. It does not set the opponent ablaze and take away damage. Let me do that one more time to show you. So about 15% damage, but again, the opponent is not set ablaze. They are not taking any chip damage, which was a missed opportunity if you ask me. Let's get into his up combo. Up combo does about 15%, but when you chain it together with the air combo, you're looking at a total of about 20% damage, which is not bad. I do highly recommend doing the air combos, which most people tend to do the air combos anyway. Okay, so the bottom combo does roughly 15 to 20% damage. Most of the time the down combo does do more damage. I also want to point out too that I forgot to mention that Itachi is actually one of the fastest characters in the game too. His moves are damn near a blur, which makes it very easy to move around with him when you're playing with him. Also easy to dodge opponent's jutsus and attacks as well. Now let's get into his tilt. His tilt is a very popular tilt. Even the computer tends to do it quite often. And it's basically him transforming himself into a bunch of birds, which, if I'm not mistaken, is supposed to be an illusion, but in this they have it just as a jutsu. Does do a decent amount of damage though. You're looking at about 5% damage, which is not bad for a tilt. Good thing about this particular tilt is that it's able to close the gap on an opponent. So if they're pretty far away, you can kind of come in closer to them without using up any chakra. The good thing about this particular tilt is that it allows you to phase through jutsus. So if somebody's shooting an ultra or a regular jutsu at you, if it's a projectile jutsu, or even if it's a rush jutsu like a Rasengan or Chidori, he will phase through it. And if it is like a Rasengan or Chidori, he'll probably end up even hitting the opponent as well. He also ends up hitting Sasuke or whoever is doing the Chidori or Rasengan. So this is a really, really good jutsu, which I highly recommend, which is no surprise why so many people online tend to do that particular jutsu, as well as the computer do that particular jutsu quite often. Now we're going to get into his regular jutsu, which is one of the first jutsus you see Itachi does, which is basically his exploding clone, which in this game is not a very viable option. I will not recommend using this particular jutsu unless you have some sort of strategy in place, because it's a very, very slow jutsu. As you can see, it comes out very slow and it approaches the opponent very slow, and it doesn't go very far. As you can see, it barely goes anywhere. The only benefit to this jutsu is that you can spam it 4 times, as it only takes about 25% chakra. Unfortunately, each clone does not go further than the other. They all go the same exact distance and then explode, which is not very far. In fact, your tilt actually goes further than your actual jutsu. So I do not recommend using this particular jutsu. Another thing too is this jutsu does have a status effect, but it doesn't do much damage. Let's see what the damage is on it. So as you see, it does about 5 to 10% on the initial hit, with a chip damage of an extra 5%. So you're looking at around 5 to 10%, 10 to 15% damage in total, which is not bad, but for a jutsu that comes out so slow and comes at the opponent so slow that it's so easy for them to dodge it, it's not enough in my opinion. But let me just show you one of the benefits of having it if you are going to employ some sort of strategy. Is you can kind of spam it, again, because you can do it 4 times, and kind of surround the opponent with it. And since Itachi is so fast, it kind of makes it easy to be able to surround the opponent with it. But again, if the opponent is moving around a lot too, you're highly unlikely to hit them with it, especially if they're coming at you and playing very aggressive. So let's get into his Ultra, which is the Tsukiyomi, and it's one of my favorite Ultras. Now with all Ultras, when you do it and you miss, it takes about 30% chakra, but if you hit them, it's a total of 40% chakra. Now it doesn't have much range, and in fact none of Itachi's Ultras have much range on them. They're pretty up close and personal. But it's one of my favorite Ultras only because it encaptures what Itachi is. Itachi is a genjutsu user, and this is one of his very few genjutsus that he has in the game. And that's why I like it so much. I would have liked to see a lot more genjutsus with Itachi, because Kakashi is one of the most powerful genjutsu users in the Naruto world. And unfortunately in this game he only has maybe 2 genjutsus. One and both are with his Ultra. No, I'm sorry, that's mistaken. This is the only genjutsu he actually has. And it does do about 30 to 35% damage. Now let's get into his other jutsus. Now to show you guys Itachi's other jutsus, which in this particular case is going to be his Flame Ball and his Tuska Blade, I decided to use the reanimated Itachi just to show you guys that there is absolutely no difference in these particular Itachis, even though they're taking up 2 slots. Now in terms of speed, they're both extremely fast. They both pretty much have the same speed. Itachi is a very fast character in my opinion. But his tilt is exactly the same. It's the pigeons, the crows, I'm sorry, which does the same amount of damage. You're looking at about 5% damage. And it does phase through jutsus as well as Ultras. His attacks are exactly the same and do the same exact damage as well. His regular attack does about 15% damage, does not have a status effect, even though it's a flame. Up attack is about 15% damage, but if you chain it with the air combos, you're looking at about 20 to 25% damage. And then his down combo is 20% damage roughly. 15 to 20% damage. And it's the same exact combo. There are no difference in these 2 Itachis. Even his grab is the same, but since I didn't show you the grab with the other Itachi, I'm not going to show you this one. Now let's get into his jutsu. I decided to switch to the Flame Ball jutsu, which have unlimited range, does a base damage of about 10 to 15% with the chip damage of about 5. So you end up having about 15 to 20% damage with the Flame Ball jutsu. Again, unlimited range, you're looking at about 30% of your chakra, so you can only do it 3 times before having to charge up your chakra. The good thing about this particular jutsu is that Itachi can also do it in the air. It does still have unlimited range, it does the same amount of damage, and you can only do it 3 times because it still takes 30% chakra. But this is very valuable in a battle, as you can be moving and then stop to do the jutsu in the floor, or you can be moving and then jumping in the air to then catch the opponent in the air. The tracking on it is very good, I will add. And again, it does have that chip damage, so this is one of his best moves. In my opinion, it's my favorite jutsu to use when I'm playing with Itachi, only because of all of the applications you can do with it. Now, let's get into his Ultra. Again, with his ultra, just like the other ultras, 30% chakra if you miss, 40 if you connect, and it's a very, very close range ultra. Let's hit him with it. Now, he hits him with the Totsuka Blade, which takes about 30 to 35% damage. Pretty decent damage. It's a cool looking jutsu, but again, I still prefer the Tsukiyomi, only because it's true to Itachi. Now, let's move on to his next jutsu and ultra. Okay, so for his last jutsu and ultra, I decided to go back to the Akatsuki Itachi. And now we're going to get into his Amaterasu, which is a flame jutsu, but it doesn't do any status effect. It's not a very fast jutsu. He does send it out relatively quickly. Not the fastest move that comes out, but he does send it out fairly decent. It does not have unlimited range. As you can see, it does stop just short of the opponent if they are completely across the screen. You're looking at about 30% chakra. Actually, you're looking at about 40% chakra, 35% chakra, as you can only do it about 2 times before having to charge up your chakra a little bit in order to do it again. So it's about a 35% chakra that it consumes, so you can only do it 2 times, which is okay because it is a very, very powerful jutsu. It's one of the most powerful jutsus in the game, as it can go through any jutsu. So basically, if somebody shoots a fireball and you do the black flame, it will not only hit and consume the fireball, it will continue to make its way to the opponent. I also wanted to add that the only thing that can actually stop the black flame is another black flame jutsu, which includes the last Sasuke's black flame fireball jutsu, another Amaterasu, Pain's almighty push, as well as Pain's absorption jutsu, and Kumi, done by both Kakashi and Madara. Those are the only things that can stop the black flame, and it leads to some sort of weird animation where they're engulfed by the black flame, although they do not take any damage. Now, if you do hit the opponent with it, you're looking at only 10% damage, and it does not do chip damage, which is a shame, and it's a huge opportunity missed by CyberConnect, as the black flame does not burn out. It does not disappear unless the user wills it to disappear. So this is a big missed opportunity by CyberConnect to have chip damage or some sort of status effect with this particular jutsu. Again, it's a relatively slow jutsu. Another benefit to this jutsu, on top of it being able to go through jutsus, is that it follows the opponent. It follows the opponent pretty much everywhere up until it gets snuffed out on its own. And I will show you that a little bit later on this video. Now we're going to go into his ultra. This particular ultra actually has the longest range out of his other two ultras. Let's hit him with it. But it's still a relatively close range ultra. Now you're looking at about 30% if you miss, 40% if you connect, and it does about 30 to 35% damage. It's a cool looking ultra. It's probably one of the better looking ultras in the game, in my opinion. It's a very powerful ultra, as you can, anybody who's a fan of the anime, that's the ultra that was basically done to Nagato when Naruto and Killer Bee helped to team up to take down Nagato. Now, for this particular demonstration, I decided to activate the computer so the computer could attack me, just so I can show off some of his tilts, the capabilities of his tilts and his jutsu. So, yeah, he got me before I was able to do it. As I said with the tilt goes through jutsus. So if an opponent does the jutsu, the tilt is the best thing to do to bypass the jutsu, as well as get up close to the opponent and maybe even hit the opponent too. Come on, attack me, Kabuto. Now the Black Flame may not work on Kabuto's jutsu, only because his particular jutsu is an air jutsu, so it may go underneath it. Okay, so now we're going to get into his awakening. I'll show you something special. Now, with both iterations of Itachi, both reanimated and regular Itachi, he has the full Susanoo, which I find a little bit odd, only because you never see Itachi actually pull out the full Susanoo. He's always pulled out a partial of the Susanoo or half the Susanoo, but his Susanoo has never looked like this in the anime. So I am surprised of the design. I'm not mad at it. It does look pretty awesome. Now I do want to say that you do take a huge speed decrease when you transform into Susanoo, but you do get a damage buff and a lot of cool moves. One being his beads, which he can throw at you for about 15% damage. You're looking at about 30% chakra taken. The thing I wanted to add too is that it does do a base damage of 15%, but it sets them ablaze, which does an extra 5% chip damage for a total of about 20% damage. Now, unlike some of the other characters, when Itachi transforms, he doesn't have as much moves. He doesn't have the same amount of movesets as some of the other characters that have extra jutsus in their transform state. But the moves that he do have are pretty cool. So he has a combo that deals about 20%, 20 to 25% damage. It ends with a black flame swing, but again, it doesn't do any status effect. It doesn't set them ablaze. It does not do any chip damage, unfortunately, which is a missed opportunity in my opinion. Now, a cool thing about Itachi is that when you attempt to do his grab, he actually does this weird raw, which is a good way to knock an opponent back if they're trying to rush you down when you're in your Susanoo state. One of the biggest issues Itachi used to have in the previous games is when you were in your Susanoo state, if the opponent rushed you down, you were pretty much done for. There was pretty much nothing you can do. If you tried to teleport out of the way, you would just teleport in the same spot and continue being hit by their particular jutsu. So this is a good move to kind of back the opponent off you. Comes out relatively quickly and it's pretty decently powered. His tilt is basically a shield. It's a repulsive shield. The interesting thing about this particular shield is it does not work on jutsu. It only works on physical attacks. See what I mean? I just activated the computer so I can show you that this move does not work on jutsus. Whenever I do it, when he pulls out the jutsu, it actually hits me. See, my timing was perfect just now, and it still ends up hitting me. But if he were to attack me, it knocks him back for a total damage of about 15%. Again, this shield is only viable for physical attacks, which does 15% damage. It knocks them back, giving you the distance you need, and giving you an opportunity to kind of recuperate for those opponents that are trying to rush you down. So I do highly recommend transforming into Susanoo when you're playing with Itachi, only because he has moves for people who's trying to rush you down, as well as long range attacks for people who are trying to keep their distance, as well as his blade too being a nice decent ranged attack too. He does aggressively come towards you as he swings his blade, and his blade does give him a decent amount of reach. And that's pretty much it with Itachi. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I enjoyed it. I love playing with Itachi. He's actually one of my favorite characters in the Naruto world and my favorite character in this particular game. So if you guys liked it, please like, share, and subscribe. And remember, your life is a fantasy.